don't think there are more people coming in now. Huh? Shall we start? Okay, welcome everybody on this GE session on operational excellence. My name is Robert Jan Streng. GE has asked me to moderate this session, which means that I'm playing a secondary role, or to be more precise, a tertiary role, because I think we have two very interesting presentations ahead of us. At 4 o'clock, Flores van der Hulst will talk about his global excellence projects that he's leading at a company that we all know, Heineken. So very interested to hear his vision and the program that he's currently scaling up within global Heineken. And we'll start this program with Ricardo Coppus, the lead for Benelux and the Nordics for operational excellence at Atos, under the title Thriving Excellence in Disrupted Times. And I think we all agree that we are in disruptive times. So Ricardo, I'd like to give you the floor. People, there is the possibility, of course, to ask questions while you push the button and ask the moderator to get in. I will, principle, allow you access, so you can ask your question in between. If it gets too much, then I'll somehow find a solution to that. So let's focus on an interactive sessions. And Ricardo, I would like to give you the floor.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I will try to share my screen. And I think it should be visible by now. So thank you, Robert Jan, again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to share with you today our experiences, best practices, and hopefully this will shed some insights in these unprecedented times that we are currently facing at the moment. And my pointer should work. There we go. So, well, nice to meet you. My name is Ricardo Coppus. As Robert Jan mentioned, I'm a senior business consultant at Atos Consulting, and I'm also the lead for operational excellence within the Benelux countries and also the Nordic, so the Scandinavian countries as well. For those of you who might be a bit less familiar with Atos, so Atos is a global leader in digital transformation with around 110,000 employees in more than 73 countries and with an annual revenue of about 12 billion. Concerning my background, I have a multidisciplinary background. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, a master's degree in marketing, and a master's degree in innovation and entrepreneurship. So it's more towards the business content, I would say. So I would like to start with a message which might not seem very hopeful, I would say. And that message is a disruption is actually never far away. For instance, when we look at an economic cycles, what we see is that the recessions are likely to happen every 6 to 10 years. On the other hand, and that's the right-hand side of this slide, we see Bill Gates, who actually projected the COVID-19 pandemic to happen. And he also projected that a viral outbreak such as COVID-19 is very likely to happen every 20 years or so. So speaking about the current pandemic, in an extremely short period of time, COVID-19 has changed the lives of everyone around the world. I think that's quite clear. For most of this is an unprecedented situation, and the challenges that come with this pandemic and this disruption seem to come at us very fast and hard and surprisingly. Yet the previous slide has shown that actually these business disruptions are not new, and they are likely to happen once every couple of years. But what is a business disruption exactly? And what are the different sources? And is it possible to come out as a winner? And if so, what do winners actually do during these times? And what is the role of automation in this journey? Coming back to the question if it is possible to come out as a winner during business disruptions, I think, well, the answer shall not surprise you, otherwise I will not be presenting here today. And that answer is a definite yes, of course. The most severe recent disruption that we've seen, which is a bit comparable to the one we are facing now, in terms of business challenges, is the financial crisis in 2008. And what we have seen is that agile and resilient companies actually recorded a significant growth, while industry peers recorded a loss. When we look at the past, of course, it's very helpful to see how companies adapt and also to distinguish among companies, I would say, in terms of how they dealt with it and also the financial returns, the financial impact. Yet what we've seen is that companies must respond to these challenges that come with these disruptions much faster than in the past. And I think the COVID-19 situation is a very good example of that. And companies need to respond very rapidly and well, in an agile manner. When we talk about disruptions, we refer to a disturbance or a problem that interrupts an event, activity, or process. Looking at this definition, it's a very broad one, and that's because business disruptions come in all different shapes and sizes, basically, and also the sources of these disruptions can vary a lot. So, for instance, it could be new market entrants, like we have seen with Amazon, who entered the Dutch market and can be considered a real threat and disturbance in the market. To also the different standards that apply, for instance, in the financial sector, the compliance standards, when we're talking about PSD2, and obviously the health crisis, the pandemic that we are currently facing. But what do winning companies actually do to overcome these business challenges, and actually during the situation, during the disruption, and also in its aftermath? When analyzing past disruptions, we've seen that companies which score high on three key elements, key competences, actually excel in growth and grow. Agility. So when changes occur, are you able to speedily adapt to these new conditions? Predictability. Are you able to foresee what's coming at you and the challenges that will bring you to the company? Resilience. Are you able to recover quickly when disruptions occur by ensuring that operations keep on going and keep on running smoothly? It's important to notice that we have not seen any chronological order in these different factors. Winning companies focus and improve all three simultaneously, and this will eventually accelerate the impact that it will have. So how are companies actually able to transform and score high on these three components? Well, we as Atos have seen that companies which incorporate 4 change factors in their transformation to basically grow in these 3 competences, significantly increase the impact of these transformations. And well, these 4 factors being, firstly, organization, processes, technology, and people and culture. And by incorporating these 4 factors in all small and major changes, the impact of the transformation is remarkably enhanced. So, agility. Companies that score high on agility are able to renew, adapt, and change quickly in volatile environments. But what do we actually do differently? Well, firstly, when we speak about people and culture, what these winning companies actually do is create a learning culture throughout the organization, so on all different levels, I would say, from top to bottom and the other way around. And also increase the personnel flexibility. And that's firstly by training employees to become more cross-skilled. And secondly, also enabling employees to work anywhere, anytime. And I think the situation we're currently facing, and also this event being done virtually, is a great example of that. And that's also the new normal we are moving towards. When we look at it from a process perspective, agile companies develop operational processes which are lean and mean with a minimum amount of waste. And this is, of course, according to the lean methodology. Yet the active listeners, well, they noticed that I said minimum waste instead of zero waste. And why did I say that? Because operations which are completely stripped down are less able to flexibly adapt to changing conditions. So this might sound a bit weird, but if you completely cut out all the fat, I would say, it's very difficult to adapt to, well, changes which have not been projected. So to become a high agility company, the automation of critical processes is key so that staff have the time and ability to focus on, for instance, handling exceptions, complex activities, and changes in volumes. And organizationally speaking, when we try to increase the agility, well, this will also enhance fast decision making. So having this in place, making sure that there's a process to rapidly make decisions is key in this journey. Also the installment of cross-functional agile teams, and that also responds to the people and culture aspect mentioned earlier, and the empowerment of people lower in the organization with a clear mandate to make decisions and to act upon it. Companies that thrive during and after disruptions are also able to project the future, so what's coming at them and the challenges that they're facing, they're going to face in the future, so that they can prepare earlier, move faster, and also cut deeper. But please note that, well, don't try to waste your time by accurately trying to predict the future. When we look at, for instance, financial cycles, economical cycles, even the experts have very different views on this, what's going to happen, when it's going to occur. So what we see is that the leading firms are actually preparing by defining and also acting upon multiple and alternative scenarios, and also making business case decisions based on these scenarios. So how to become a prediction-oriented company? It's important to have future-proof skills and to assess the current skills, develop training plans to be future-ready. Additionally, and this is more on the input gathering side, it's important to make sure to encourage employees to provide input, as in most companies, the people mostly lower down in the organization are the ones who are closest to the customer, so they know what the customers want and also regarding the future needs that they have. So talking about prediction and then in relationship to simulation, we distinguish 3 different levels. So when we talk about process, by implementing process mining, companies are able to better discover, monitor, and improve real processes. And on the other hand, process simulations enable companies to create and run different scenarios, process scenarios, to see how processes handle changing conditions, and that could be, for instance, changing in volumes. So stepping a bit away from processes and focusing on the technology part, we see that analytics engines and prediction or simulation of systems through digital twinning is essential in providing companies with a comprehensive view of future behavior and how systems basically adapt to these changing conditions. When we look at it from a more strategic level, scenario planning, stress testing, well, those are methods that should be used to predict and simulate strategies to adapt to these changing conditions. Then resilience. So companies that score high on resilience are able to bounce back when abrupt challenges occur. Becoming a high reliability company requires the development of both agile and resilient skills. And this might seem a bit contradictory, yet both capabilities need to be balanced to become a winning organization. And regarding agility, so for agility, it's key to adapt and stay ahead. While when we focus on resilience, it ensures that a quick recovery is possible when the company has been thrown off course. So these are not contradictory. They should be balanced in a way that disruptions can be managed and handled in the best way possible. So in becoming a high reliability organization, leadership should be developed at all levels, and coordination should be fluid instead of based on standardized procedures, standardized rules, for instance, policies. When we look at it from a process point of view, well, one of the biggest trends that we've seen, of course, in well, many years is the lean methodology. And there's a strong focus on efficiency. Yet when we try to become resilient, it's also important to rebalance this. And I mentioned it before, lean and mean, yet also not stripping down fully the operation. And that's also the point I'm trying to make here. So it's important to rebalance from solely focusing on efficiency through, for instance, just in time, and moving, well, rebalancing also towards reliability by using, for instance, multiple suppliers, matching supply to demand, and also localizing supply chains. And this is also a trend that we see currently in the COVID-19 era, that companies are actively doing this to become more resilient and less dependable on well, international supply chains, for instance. So high reliability organizations should accelerate the end-to-end digitization by having a clear view which critical parts of the business should be digitized and automated to drive near-term value, and initiatives are critical in which activities are critical in achieving competitiveness, remaining it, and increasing it as well. So when companies are thrown off course, it is key to have a clear strategic purpose to fall back on. So especially when a lot of things are changing, a lot of challenges are coming at your company, it's essential to have a clear strategic purpose that will guide you through these times of disruption. To reach the strategic purpose, there should be a focus on growth, even if this might imply occurring costs. And this is, of course, context dependent, but we see that the winning companies actually invest and try to focus on growth instead of scaling down. Lastly, and this is also a bit linked to the people part I mentioned earlier, resilient companies are simplifying the organizational structures, and this will improve, of course, the leadership at all levels that I just mentioned, but also fluid coordination. But what is exactly the role of automation within this journey? So to become agile, more prediction-oriented, and also resilient, companies should reinvent themselves by putting automation central, and firstly to the business model, also to the operating model, and to become an automation-powered company is also to combine automation technologies to reinforce the impact. And I will come back to that in a bit. But why is this so important? And what are the direct advantages of putting automation at the core? So some of the advantages that we have seen when we talk about agility, increased flexibility, increased capability, accelerated decision-making, real-time optimizations, accelerated time to market, prediction, accurate decision-making, real-time forecasting, optimization through some simulations, and the labor allocation, which is optimized through automation in the prediction part. Then resilience, so streamlining business processes, very important. So not solely focusing on leaning, but also on the resilience aspect, and automation can support on that. And allocating resources to complex and resilient building activities. So when we look at the financial side of it, the financial benefits, well, there are two impacts. Firstly, on the revenue. Secondly, on the cost. So according to the Harvard Business Review research, companies which combine these automation technologies report a 6% higher revenue opposed to not combining it. So seeing these automation solutions as standalone and not as a combined strategy or a combined impact that they can have. Then if we look at the cost side, so McKinsey concluded that on average 5% of the jobs can be fully automated, while 60% of the jobs, for 60% of the jobs, around 1/3 of the activities could be automated. So that's a very interesting finding in my point of view, and clearly shows the financial benefit. So what does this look like in practice? So taking one of our clients, a world-leading wealth tech organization, actually, which experienced a significant increase in operational pressures, which is projected to increase year by year. The continuous pressures were causing an increase in operational delay, reputational risks, and also a loss of clients, and well, the clients that actually stayed were becoming more and more dissatisfied. So as a partner in this customer's journey, we firstly defined a automation strategy regarding AI and RPA. When the strategy was clearly defined and also supported throughout the organization, we set up a center of excellence, an automation center of excellence. And as a next step, we started optimizing and robotizing these processes, and in parallel also implemented the AI solutions according to the strategy defined at the first step. So regarding the business value that we've seen after that we noticed after the implementation, so there was a reduction of operational costs by more than 20%, an increase of organizational agility of around 15%, and additional costs were avoided through an increased scalability possibility without having to hire more employees. So one of the partners in this journey, one of the partners of Atos in supporting companies in this automation journey is Pega. So Pega is a global leader in digital process automation that offers a single integrated solution with advanced customer engagement and intelligent automation. This solution makes it possible to automate customer journeys and process end-to-end in a very rapid way, so within 90 days. And modifications are quickly executable due to the low coding development environment. So to get a more practical view of what such a journey looks like, what these solutions can do, we would like to invite you to our expo session. Well, maybe you joined before this session already, but we will be there for the rest of the day as well. So please come by if you're interested in having a look there. So knowing the staggering results I just showed you, I would like to end with a short imagination exercise for you to do. What I would like to ask you is to imagine what becoming an automation-powered company, which is resilient, agile, and prediction-oriented, would mean for your company. So how much cost per year would you save on automating your key processes? Into which value-adding activities or innovation-related activities would you reallocate the freed-up staff, which is freed up due to automation? And also, with the increased profits, like I just showed you with the financial results, where would you invest in to accelerate the performance of your business even more? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So if there are any questions, then I'm more than happy to answer.
Yes, Ricardo, there are a few questions on the chat by Jaap and Alain. Maybe Alain or Jaap, can you join into the meeting? Then I think then you can pose them yourself. That's the best way to do. Because one question, kind of a common question, Ricardo, is about the lean, which has something like being kind of steadiness and stableness, and agile, where you have to change all the time. And how can you mix those two together into a single decision that you have to make?
So if I understood the question correctly, it was the link between lean on the one hand and agile on the other, right? And how to combine it. And
lean has a steadiness ID behind it, and agile is the kind of adapting all the time.
Yes, exactly. And I think that comes back a bit to what I mentioned. Lean very much focusing on efficiency, ensuring that operations need to run with well, basically zero waste. I think that's the ultimate goal. Yet in agile, exactly, it's about rapid changes and ensuring that this is possible. So there needs to be a balance, and that's a difficult one because it's not set in stone. I cannot hand you a handbook in how to do it exactly, or what the perfect balance is. Yet it's important that processes are able to be modified. So completely stripping down, ensuring that there's no waste, that there's no inventory, for instance, in your supply chains, makes it very difficult to change your processes. So it's important to keep some slack, I would say, in your processes, making sure that your people have the mandate to actually make rapid changes if required, having fluid decision making, leadership in all different levels with well, for instance, the scaled agile framework, which I like a lot, is a perfect example of that, where every different level has a certain mandate for certain topics, and so I think those are important things, and it can, like I mentioned, it could be seen as very contradictory, yet it is not. There's a perfect balance that can be maintained. So I hope that answered the question a bit, and otherwise I'm happy to, of course, share some more.
We might get back into this discussion afterwards, Ricardo. Is there the overall big question? What can companies do now that they become completely disrupted? What would be your main advice in these times?
Yes. So what my suggestion would be, and it's going to sound very broad and vague, but to just start. Especially when we look at automation, it's more important to just start than overthinking what the strategy should be. So of course it's important, like I mentioned, also to have a strategy regarding automation, regarding how to handle the future, etc., etc. But it's important to, in parallel, also start, meaning try to improve your processes, try to build this leadership culture. Start with one key process and try to automate it. And then as a next step, you can, or also in parallel, you can think about, okay, how to become an automation powered company. How can I relate my RPA solutions with my AI solutions that I'm thinking of? Which are the key processes I should tackle next? So the first thing would be try to improve, which is key. So try to identify the key areas within your company. And also identify what can be done. Is there something that we can automate? Can we make it more efficient? Can we change the culture? Can we simplify the organization? Yet also thinking about the bigger picture and where do we want to go in the next few years. But to start immediately, I think that's key. So don't waste time in at least with starting by defining the strategy for years and years and years, and then actually start. But I would say do it in parallel and try to tackle the key challenges and the key processes which are critical to your organization first.
Okay, thank you. Clear. We'll see you back at the forum at 4:30 CET. So thank you very much, Ricardo, for this clear presentation. I would like now to move on to Flores, representing a well-known company that also has to deal with a big disruption. So Flores, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Do you see the presentation also?
No, not yet. Yeah, there's no screen share coming up. Yeah.
Indeed. So welcome everybody. I will shortly introduce myself a bit more in detail, but I will tell you something about process excellence within Heineken indeed, and how this indeed was interrupted due to the COVID-19 situation. So who am I? Flores from Hulst. I have a bachelor degree in economics. I work since 1995 for Heineken, so I hope to celebrate my 25th anniversary this year. Background in finance, did a lot of different roles. And the last 10 to 12 years, I'm in the area of process improvement. Myself, I'm a Master Black Belt certified with Lean System Company. And for the rest, I like watching sport, Formula One, soccer. So it's a bit of a boring season at the moment due to the situation, but we need to deal with this. As I said, I would like to take you a bit in a journey about process excellence. I also heard earlier from Ricardo topics like agile, like lean, and that's also something we are, I would say sometimes struggling with or try to find a balance, but let's take you there. So perhaps good to share a bit where we are currently positioned. So we have a future of finance where things like looking at our end-to-end process, digitizing our finance transformation journey, also looking at the capabilities of our people, and especially in the end-to-end pillar and the development of our and the capabilities of our people, we are really try to link also our program with. Now, as a team, we are part of what we call within Heineken P&CI, Process and Control Improvement. So we try to effectively manage our risk, our processes, and our controls, and also to improve that. And so that's especially where we are coming in. And so we're working from a team from Amsterdam, from the global head office, and from there we have our teams in the countries, in the opcos, where we also train and try to develop them further. Now, if you look at what is under our process excellence program, there are actually two main pillars. This has to do with business process management. So it is more in the area of, okay, how do we set our processes up, and what are our process standards, but also how are we going to measure our processes, and also thinking about a topic like process ownership. While on the CPI, on our continuous process improvement pillar, there we are indeed looking more and, okay, how can we really also optimize our processes? So we are looking at, okay, what is the design of our processes? How can we measure our processes? And also how can we improve our processes? And that we are putting now under the umbrella of process excellence, linking it more and more to the strategic risk of our company. And so in the past, there was a real bottom-up approach. So opcos, functions are struggling with processes where we were quite successful in optimizing that. But what we try to do more and more now is to look at what are the key issues, the key risks that we have in our company, and try to optimize that also with a more process-oriented approach. And so our purpose is to enable the business to drive end-to-end performance, also embedding this process excellence culture, so also looking at the people side, because in the end, it's also the people who need to believe in it and also drive it. And then we can indeed.
Flores, problem seeing the full part of your screen. We only see the left upper part of it. I think about 3/4 of it. Can you see how that's the? And
that's indeed strange.
Yeah. So now we can see the whole screen. By the way, so it's so you might also consider to do it straight from PowerPoint. You don't run this risk.
Okay.
Especially if you enlarge it a bit. Yeah.
Okay, like this then?
Yeah, for me it's readable. Is that also for the audience? There are a few people typing. Brian, can you comment? Is it okay like this? Tick, tick, tick. Well, it's readable for me. So yes, let's do it this way. Okay, better, as people will say. Yeah, better. Yeah, and can you show the previous slide again? Is the question. The finance one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's. Yeah.
It's really strange because if I just put it in presentation mode, it's apparently.
Yeah, it's using some kind of manual monitor. I think it's fine, although the letters on the right are difficult to read. Yeah, so I try presentation mode. Can you try once more again to see how that works? No. No, it cuts off about everything right off the arrow. So no, I think we should use the PowerPoint slide then. But be aware that the smallest letter type is not readable. Flores, are you willing to share your slide pack with the audience afterwards?
I can send the PDF version.
Okay, yeah. So we'll do that. We'll make sure that can happen. Okay, sorry for interrupting you.
So quickly going back, under the future finance strategy, we have our processing control team, there focusing on the processes, controls, and looking at the risk that we have, and that's what we also try to improve. Also under the umbrella of process excellence, where the components about business process management are, and also about continuous process improvement. And looking at what we said, our priorities towards also 2022. So we really want to drive this end-to-end performance, embedding the process excellence culture. So also really looking at the people side in order to fuel the Heineken growth and to enhance further our end-to-end process performance. What I said earlier, we would like to do this leverage on this risk-based approach, and especially also now in seeing the whole COVID-19 situation, we see more and more opcos struggling with our local risk, and that can be different per country, per region. But that is also what our countries should submit to the global function to say, okay, what are our local risks? And from that, we have a consolidated view. And there also we can start making our improvements. Going a bit back to the two main pillars about business process management and continuous process improvement. So the business process management, that's what we try to evaluate more and more. And so looking at the design pillar. So again, what is the design of our processes? What are our standard processes? But also more looking at, okay, how can we then start measuring them? This was the last couple of years, very much focused on our strategic programs and global functions, while the improve pillar was more focused on our opcos, on our operating companies, so on our countries that we have our business in. And this is currently what we are putting more and more under one umbrella of process excellence. Now, some of the components are perhaps indeed then a bit too small to read, but this is our transformation roadmap. So the program started before 2017, where we also had the setup of our shared service center in Europe. And the last couple of years, we really were trying to simplify and to standardize our approach. And so we became more in contact with our operating companies and with the global programs. We were more and more connecting to our business priorities, setting up a proper organization, and also to increase the collaboration inside and outside our function. Now, towards 2020 and 2022, we really want to scale up. And so we really want to connect process excellence more to the improvement initiatives that are linked to our top priority risk. And we really want to connect and embed that more and more to drive also process ownership. So it's important that either in an OpCo or also at a global function, people really start owning the process, and we can start linking the initiatives to those processes, so that we move more from a step-up approach for improving to a more process-oriented approach. And in the end, that must drive our process excellence culture, and that we use communities and change management programs to further drive this. What I said earlier, how are we going to serve all the functions and all the OpCos? That's where the programs comes in. So we also try to make it attractive for the function and for the OpCos to use it. So we also try to communicate a lot through workplace, share best practices. We have a CPI platform where all the projects from the OpCos are being captured, where people can find best practices and can find all the documentation. There we can further leverage on that. So this is the view that we had before the whole COVID-19 situation was also kicking in. And so under the design pillar, more and more looking at this integrated view of risk and control, so that we really have one picture of our process. So not only the process itself, but also indeed what are the risks that we see in our processes, and what are the current mitigating controls that we have. To further to set up and drive the process ownership for our processes. And on the measure part, and that's also something that Ricardo mentioned, more looking at the data. So we are also indeed looking at process mining. So really mining our data and to see, okay, what does the data tell us? Next to, in general, we are measuring our performance, which is a very good source of prioritization of your process improvement projects. Now, on the improve pillar, we said more and more linking to the OpCo setup and the top priority risk. We continue developing our people. So we rolled out a full training program for our colleagues for Lean and Six Sigma on different levels, yellow, green, and black belt trainings. And what we try to do more and more is further deploy our communities. So fortunately, we really have good skilled people around the globe in the OpCo, and we also try to use those trained and skilled colleagues to also, for example, deliver training or supporting coaching sessions, or so we really try to set up also the center of excellence, that every region is getting its own center of excellence, where the capabilities are there, and they are also able to help the surrounding countries there. Of course, we also support hands-on support, so-called Kaizen session and project coaching, so really help the OpCos with their first projects, which I think is really important. Also, when you look at it from a global function, so don't only throw PowerPoints over the fence and okay, this is how you need to do it, but also be there with them in sessions and also show that things are working. So that is also from OpCo side very, very much appreciated. And we are constantly evaluating the maturity level of our OpCos to so-called toolkit approach. So this is also a guidance for our OpCos where they can say, okay, this is indeed what I need to do in order to get to the next level. And this is not a tick in the box exercise, but we really also use it to implement a more sustainable approach for those OpCos. So don't forget the basics if you want to, for example, start improving your most complex process. But start small, show success, have a good management commitment in order to indeed, in the end, show the results. And personally, I truly believe that in the end, doing process improvements is important, but it can never be seen as only a cost-driving initiative, because then in the end, people will be disconnected. So I think it's important also to tell them why you're doing this, and also see that the time that you spend or take out of these initiatives can be used really for more value-adding activities in the end. And then COVID came, and I now want to focus a bit more on the improve pillar. So you see that opcos they currently have their own priorities. Breweries are down, bars, restaurants are closed, so there is no sales. So yeah, and opcos really have their own problems at the moment. That also means that our training, the training program, partly came to a standstill because we're not able to travel anymore. Fortunately, we could keep connecting with our communities, but also the hands-on support became more and more difficult. Of course, we do some virtual coaching, but that was in the beginning really a challenge. And because indeed the opcos were managing the business at the moment, we really had difficulty by leveraging on their performance. So, but yeah, in the end, we need to move forward, and this is indeed the response that we're taking at the moment. So, because it also gives opportunities, because you see that now other risks are popping up in our opcos. So we try to see what are currently the processes that are at risk, and perhaps those processes were already at risk in the past, but that's becoming now more visible. And so this is really not a good source also to link our improvement program to mitigate the risk and also to improve our underlying processes. And in terms of trainings, we directly move to the more online versions of the training. So we have introduced e-learnings. We are organizing so-called lean learn and learn sessions where people based on the online trainings can also step in and ask questions and also have some more practical guidance what they also would have if we would have the face-to-face trainings. Now we are discussing current issues in the rollout of the program, and that's also where we use the community for. So really brainstorm how CPI can support those opcos. What we said, we were using more and more Microsoft Teams and other apps like Whiteboard to facilitate those sessions. And yeah, I think it's important to stay connected with the opcos to understand the current situation. And therefore, we use standardized templates and dashboard to keep monitoring the performance of our opcos so that we know what is going on there. And to close it, as a future outlook, we just leverage more on technology to further document and measure our processes. Also in the previous session, there was also some topics about further automation of your processes. And also I believe in that. So I also believe in robotizing, automating your processes. But on the other hand, we must also, I always say, but don't automate your waste. So first look at the process itself before you start to automate. Because in the end, if you want to change something in your process, also, you need to change everything on the automation side. So it's better to, in my view, to also first optimize your process itself before you start automating that. Furthermore, we are sharing best practices among opcos because opcos are really struggling with the same problems. So by the use of our global platform, opcos can really find best practices, and there is a lot of traction at the moment between the opcos because most of them are really struggling with the same issues. We continue with our blended approach in our training program. So we really also use this opportunity to move from the online training versus face-to-face, further developing our online training program where possible. And also we would like to learn from the situation and focus more on the opcos priorities where to improve. So although it is a terrible situation and we are really impacted hard by this COVID-19 situation, I think we can also learn a lot from it, and also see where are the priorities for us as a company. So, yeah, this is a bit in a nutshell, and I understand it's 20 minutes, but what we currently are doing within Heineken to further develop this, and some of the struggles that we had due to the COVID-19, and what is at the moment our response on this.
Okay, thank you, Flores. Interesting. There are a few questions on the chat. So I will cite Jaap van Ede. Are you applying Hoshin Kanri to get focused lean improvements?
Yeah, that's what we try to do more and more, especially for the more mature opcos. So what you see indeed is that at the beginning of the journey, there was really a bottom-up approach. So depending on the opcos, and there was a finance director enthusiastic about it. We were start doing the first improvements. So then showing results. And what we see now more and more, and that's also what we preach, especially with the more mature opcos, with the bigger team, with the stronger teams. We really use Hoshin Kanri to really, based on the strategic objectives of that opco, to focus on the right improvements. And why do we do that? And not from the start, because although within Heineken, in the supply chain organization, we have TPM as an improvement methodology, but it's really focused on the supply chain. Within the other function, it is really relatively new. So I also see a comment of Brian here. Indeed, sometimes you need to start small, show the success, and then in the end, people want to become part of success. And when it's getting bigger and bigger, then you can indeed introduce topics like Hoshin Kanri and those kind of methodologies.
Okay. Yeah, does it answer your question? He's typing. So in between, I'll go to the next question. It's about the process mining that you mentioned. Stuart would like to know which process mining software that you are using at Heineken.
Currently, we're using Celonis.
Okay, so it seems a bit like the market lead at the moment, huh?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, Jaap is happy with your answer. Stuart, are you found the answer? What is the background of your answer? What is the background of your question?
Or you're working for another mining company?
Yeah, that's what you... Yeah. Is there... Stuart, okay, yeah, I'll let you in. One sec. Let's see if this button now works. Stuart, you should now be able to talk, I would say. You were too fast. Okay, try again to get in. Talking about disruptive technologies, disruptive times for organizers of conferences. Do you have... So, okay, yeah, Stuart, yeah, please try to get in. It would be nice. Yes, there you are. We can see you at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah.
we can.
Sorry. Hi, Flores. We've just started the journey with Celonis. Do you have some examples of where you're using or discovering the processes using process mining? What benefits you've had?
Yeah, so what we currently are doing, we are indeed extracting data from our core ERP system, especially in our transactional finance processes. So the first to pay or the cash.
Let's see how it gets. Technique is now far from perfect. I'll try to mute you, Stuart, first. Flores, can you repeat your answer? Try to get the sound better.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, can you hear me?
Can you repeat your answer?
So it was just to, yes, it was just to understand what examples you have.
Can you hear me?
And yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Flores, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear you, yeah.
Okay.
So so we are expecting the data from our core ERP system, putting it in Flores, and we are now using that for the more transactional finance activities. So in our order to cash area, in our purchase to pay area. There has been a pilot with a few opcos to also show how much those processes are deviating from our standard processes. And next to that, we are going to use process mining also as part of a so-called Process Excellence Week. So we're going to organize a Process Excellence Week with one of the bigger opcos, where we are going to look at what are your strategic objectives that you want to achieve with a certain process, in this case, order to cash. What does the data tell us? So what do we see based on the data? And based on the standardized processes, the deviation of the processes, what the data tell us? Okay, yeah, how can we start improving those processes? And then we are covering the full suite of the design, the measure part, process data mining, improve part, our continuous process improvement strategy. So I hope that answers your question, Stuart.
Stuart, you're still able to talk if everything is fine.
It says yes, thanks.
Yeah, yes, thanks. Okay, yeah, it does. Okay, thank you. Question from Oscar. Do you use standard work solutions at Heineken opcos, and how do you ensure that all levels in the organization see the benefits of standard work?
Yeah, so I think we are in the supply chain organization, we are more developed there than in the, let's say, finance and service organization. But if I take the example of our global shared service center, there we have so-called standard operating procedures. And those standard operating procedures tell the admins how they should process an invoice, how they should do the billing, how they should not allocate the incoming payment from a customer. So what you see is that they try to improve those processes, those global standards. But in my opinion, you can only do that always to a certain level, because there are always local circumstances. What is holding you back in achieving the most optimal process optimization? So yes, indeed, we try to use that as much as possible. And also our ERP systems are moving more and more towards standardized processes, including the standardization of our procedures. But yeah, sometimes you are facing some local challenges, local sections, why that is not possible. But it's definitely our goal to do that.
Okay, thank you. Niels is asking the question about your Process Excellence Week, if we can all join it. He's actually asking if he can join it, but I'll ask the question on behalf of everybody here.
I think let's give it a thought. I think it's a really, really nice initiative, because we are really bringing everything there together, really also really working together with the people in the opco, and so.
Yeah, but I think it's Heineken only, officially.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So you might consider to do it broader. We fan of Heineken for the rest of our lives. We already are. Most of us, I think. Okay. Then there's no further questions on your presentation. I'd like to thank you, Flores, for this very vivid insight in the work that you're doing for Heineken and how Heineken is proceeding in times of Corona with operational excellence. Quite interesting. I'd like to move now towards the question and answer, or the panel, and I would like to invite Ricardo back on stage. Flores, you as well, because I'd like to welcome some questions from the audience. And feel free to jump in, because it's nice when we have everybody in the picture. I'm not sure if that's possible. So feel free to ask access and ask your question. I'm not sure how responsive the system is, so I'll just wait a minute. Show my face as well. Takes a while. There it is. Should look down a bit. Because one first question that I would like to ask is Ricardo, your story was more or less about generic, how to look at it from a generic perspective. Flores is focused, of course, on beer, and within the beer on finance functions. Do you think it can be? Does it limit somehow the way you have been working? Is it different to work in a completely different environment, or can we apply the program that Flores has outlined in principle for all kind of businesses in all kind of sectors?
That's a question towards me, right?
Yeah, both of you.
Okay. Well, I don't know the program of Flores, of course, by heart, but well, talking to Flores and also hearing his presentation, I think it's the generic principles apply to a broad range of companies, I think, in different sectors. I don't think it's limited to Heineken or the beer industry or the beverage industry or whatever. I think the general principles like process mining and those kinds of things, I think those are applicable to well, mostly all companies, I would say. So I don't think it's targeted at Heineken solely. I think it can be copied and maybe with some minor adjustments can be implemented in other countries as well, companies and countries as well.
Is it also your view, Flores? If you start working tomorrow in an insurance company, can you start the same program in principle?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I said earlier, it's a bit. I think you should look also at the maturity level at the moment there. And I think it's also a bit at what is the vision of the company. And do they first want to make some improvements, and then you perhaps focus a bit more on the improved pillar, and then later you're taking the other elements there. I think I always believe in you must also show success, and you start small, show the benefits, and then it becomes bigger and bigger. So I think it's also a bit depending on what is the maturity level of a company. Do they already have documented processes? Are they doing something about measuring that? And that's also what I saw myself within Heineken. I love the data. I love to analyze the data. But if I go to a starting opco, I say, okay, I see the data set. Let's do an hypothesis test, and let's do an ANOVA. Then they are fully disconnected. So I think you should also look at again. What is the journey you're in, and can you take them step by step? And that's why I also think, based on the answer of the question of Jaap about Heineken Cannery, I think it's really depending on what is the maturity of of a company and also of an opco.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. What is remarkable in both your presentations, you were mentioning process mining, and jumped into that. It seems to me like a topic that has been around for a long time on a kind of academic level, and suddenly seems to come now into fashion is not the right word, but it seems to have reached a maturity level that it really can be applied to a certain on a professional basis. Stuart, you were mentioning that you started with it in your company. Can you comment a little bit on that? Is that possible? You don't have to disclose where you're from, but if you like, you can do, of course. Is it okay just to see how it fits to what you are what you are trying to achieve with it in your organization?
I think Stuart has to rejoin. I think he. I don't know if he let. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, I'll let you in. I'll let you in. 1 sec. Press the right button. Now I would expect you to be there. Okay, try again, Stuart. If the COVID crisis keeps going on for 5 years, I think we're going to use to this kind of tools. Stuart, can you try again? Others in the audience, of course, feel free to jump in because it makes it, I think, be quite an interesting group together. And I guess that around the coffee corner would be a very fierce discussion on how things are going. So let's try it if we can virtualize that. Nope. Flores, when did you start with process mining? Is it recently? Is it more than a couple of years ago? Is that new?
To be honest, 10, 12 years ago, we already had our first, let's say, demos about process mining. So then we started with another tool about measuring our performance, looking more at doing our KPIs. And then I remember at that time we already started looking at the possibilities for process mining. But actually, the last 18 months, it really became a more trending topic also within Heineken. So that's indeed a bit the situation we are in now. I think we also try to look more and more at our data and what the data tell us. So that's indeed a bit the journey we're in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. There are more questions that people have. Do you have questions to each other, given your presentations? Of course, you have been in the preparation session, so is it?
Perhaps I can comment on one thing, and that's about, I also saw it during the presentation of Ricardo about agile versus lean. Because we are also sometimes being challenged by management teams, for example, that, now we have agile, so why do we need our continuous process improvement CPI program? Why do we need lean? Because lean is difficult, you need to document it, and agile is just free format. And then, to be honest, I always ask the people, but what is agile for you? So is agile the way you organize yourself, or is agile indeed doing Scrum or sprints or doing your daily huddle? So I think it's also a bit, how you see agile. So what is agile for you? And what we try to do more also within Heineken is more and more combining the methodology. So, for example, once we are in the improve phase of an improvement project, and then we are using sprints in order to deliver our improvements. Let's say those kind of things.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm never a big fan of copy pasting a certain methodology. So when you're trying to become agile and basically reading the agile methodology and the guide and trying to implement it word by word, I don't think that works. It needs to be adjusted towards your organization, and I don't think following it word by word or letter by letter will increase your performance. And I think it's perfectly capable to link it to other methodologies and to make it your own as well. So I fully agree. I think agile is very interesting in that sense, because agile is, next to a methodology, also a word becoming agile. And that's, for me, way broader than just the agile methodology. So I fully agree with you, Flores, on that one.
what would be the key difference between if you had given this presentation 10 years ago? What is the key difference in the, what are we now, in the 30s or the 20s? The roaring 20s of the 21st century? What is it's the start of the COVID era? What will be the key difference? Is it indeed agile that makes a difference? Is it indeed the combination of the agile way of thinking whilst keeping the lean methodology?
Well, I think there's definitely more focus on agile now. Of course, I think every company wants to be agile now. It has been, of course, a development for many years now. I think the focus 10 years ago was more on the efficiency part, becoming as efficient and cost effective as possible. And of course, agile 10 years ago was also alive and kicking, I would say. But what we've seen is that, of course, now, if you're not agile, you're well, not very convincing in most eyes, I would say. So I definitely think there's more focus on it now than it was 10 years ago. And I think the focus back then was, well, also now, of course, on efficiency. But I think that was the main focus back then. Okay,
thank you. Stuart has issues getting in on the microphone, but he has written in the chat that they have started process mining in the company he's working for, Grundfos, in the order to cash process, and found areas for improvement and started robotics to solve the issues that they have discovered. I see it everywhere. Suddenly, indeed, because Flores, you were mentioning 10 years ago you started it. The kind of, I think, especially in the Netherlands, we have the group in Eindhoven around process mining and the Disco tool. And I think for a long time it is kind of a stable, somewhat academic with initial attempts in business life. And now suddenly, since 12 months or something, or maybe a bit longer, companies like Celonis really became something big. If you go to Celonis World, which was the end of April, was scheduled to happen in Munich, and also didn't go through, of course, but they had, I think, 2,000 participants or so that they were inviting, and so suddenly it's a big thing, and for some reason the market's ready for it. In my view, especially because they don't only do process mining but also process monitoring for a big part. They are combining mining with improving, which of course fits perfect to the operational excellence track that we have.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Other questions? Feel like so feel free to type them, guys. Don't hesitate to type. Because or should I jump in? Because otherwise we will call it a day, I would say. Let's see. The delay in the chat box is in the chat box is about 30 seconds, I discovered. So I waited 30 seconds, and if there's no message, then I'm starting to conclude this session. You won't get applause. You get applause, but you won't hear it. So thank you both, Ricardo, for giving us a very good overview of the how to thrive in disruptive times. Flores, a very concrete program that you are successfully launching. There's a question for Ricardo to share the slides. I will come back to Victoria is in the call, I think, as well. So Victoria, there is a request to share both presentations. So I assume that everybody in the call can receive them. And I'm also assuming that Victoria has an overview of everybody who's in the call, because I can only see the people that have put something in the chat box. So Brian, we make sure that you will get them.
Yeah.
Flores, Ricardo, applause. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, enjoy your evening. I'll hope to see you all on behalf of GEE, to see you in next sessions later on. I would like also to point out to the Expo domain where you can go if you like, and in the networking. So have a nice evening, and I hope to see you all face to face one day after the COVID-19 crisis is over, and then we probably talk about a new crisis that we have invented altogether. more light gone. So thank you all. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.